Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, it's okay. Over to Mr. Fast.
Thank you, Minister, for appearing before us this afternoon. Welcome back, and also welcome back to Jonathan Wilkinson. It's good to have you back at the table. I'm going to jump right into it. Let's talk about carbon taxes, or you call it carbon pricing, but I think Canadians better understand the term carbon taxes because they know this is coming out of their pockets. I believe every member on this table acknowledges Canada has a responsibility to address its greenhouse gas emissions and the impacts of it. Where we differ is how do we do that? Now, over the last year and a half, your government has crafted a climate change plan which includes the imposition of a massive carbon tax on Canadians, which will ramp up to $50 per ton of emissions by the year 2022. And even though some provinces, most provinces have some kind of a regime in place to do that, none of them have a $50 per ton price. So this is a policy that definitely comes out of your government. And Canadians have a right to ask the question, okay, what will this mean for me directly? What does it mean for my family? What does it mean for my business? And there was a report prepared by your department. I'm assuming some of that work was started even before you got into government, but the report is dated October 20 of 2015. And that report appears to outline what the impacts of the carbon tax will be. And if I can just quote very briefly from that report, it's from Paul Rochon to Jean-Francois Perrault. And right in the front page, it talks about the context and key findings. It says these higher costs, referring to carbon taxes, would then cascade through the economy in the form of higher prices, thus leading all firms and consumers to pay more for goods and services with higher carbon content. And then we go to the details. And we read this memo, referring to the memo that presumably your department prepared. This memo provides an assessment of the economic and greenhouse gas emission impacts from a global carbon price. The key findings from our assessment are: bullet 1, blacked out, redacted. Bullet 2, what these key findings were, blacked out. Bullet 3 talks about the price that's required to limit the rise in average global temperature to 2 degrees. The actual price, blacked out. Bullet 4, blacked out, nothing there. And so it goes throughout the whole memo. There's a failure to actually let Canadians know what it is that they're going to be expected to pay, what the impact it will be on them and their families. So now we've got this report that I believe legitimately Canadians should have full access to, given that it has such ramifications for them. In your mandate letter, Minister, there is a provision that says your government will be transparent, wants to improve transparency and openness with Canadians. And I think this is a case where Canadians really have a right to know, what will a carbon tax mean for me? Can I get your commitment today to provide Canadians with a fully unredacted version of the report that was done within your government?
So I'm extraordinarily proud that our government has put a price on pollution because we know any credible climate plan needs to have a price on pollution. We've taken an approach where we not only have a price on pollution, we have regulations because we believe that that is the most cost-effective way, keeping in mind the impact, keeping in mind competitiveness. I will remind the member that we had a carbon pricing leadership coalition, which include major companies, energy companies, consumer good companies, all 5 banks, who said we support putting putting a price on pollution because it is the most efficient way to reduce emissions and do what we also want to do, which is foster innovation, creating good jobs. I was, in fact, in California, where we had major investments, major venture capital firms, private equity money that are very excited about investing in Canada because we are moving forward on a serious climate plan, and we are going to create the innovations that are going to create good jobs here. I will remind the member.
Minister, the question was very simple. The report that was done by your department, which outlined the impacts of a carbon tax on Canadians, will you provide Canadians with a fully unredacted copy? In other words, a full copy of that so they can see for themselves what the impacts will be as identified by your departmental staff? A very simple question.
So
yes
the
or no?
report that you were referring to was prepared under the previous government. It does not reflect our climate change plan. We did actually put out an economic analysis of the Pan-Canadian framework, including a document that goes through our approach to carbon pricing. The impact of carbon pricing will depend on each province's approach. We have taken the approach that is up to provinces and territories to put a price on pollution. 80% of Canadians live in a jurisdiction where there's a price on pollution, and the precise impact will depend on the approach taken by a province. It'll depend on their economy, it'll depend on what they plan on doing with the revenues, and it'll depend on whether they put a direct price or they have a different system. So,
Minister, I
Mr.
just...
Fast,
Yeah,
I hate to do this, but believe it
it's
or
just
not, we're past the
yes
6
or no.
minutes.
Will you provide Canadians
So let's-
with the
let's-
full
I mean-
impact analysis?
we have. We've given the full impact. I'm happy to direct you to the report that reflects what we are doing with our plan, not the previous government's approach.
Okay, we have to cut it off there. The next one.